In this video, I'm going to talk about human augmentation. I'll start with the definition of human augmentation, then I give a couple of examples of human augmentation technologies, and I will talk about the concept of the augmented human. Let me start with a story. I am really a fan of science fiction movies. And a couple of years ago, I saw the movie Edge of Tomorrow with Tom Cruise as playing one of the main characters. And he was wearing a bulky exoskeleton because he was fighting some sort of alien in a distant future. And I was wondering, wow, what is this kind of technology that I'm only aware of in science fiction? But then I came across an article where I read that some factories, but also the Dutch military and also the American military are using exoskeletons to augment the physical capabilities of their employees. So science fiction is really becoming science fact. We do not have exoskeletons like Edge of Tomorrow, of course, today, but that kind of realized, at least that was for me like a sort of epiphany, that I thought we are actually heading into a future of augmenting humans. And in a way, we are already augmented with the use of smartphones, for example, when we get access to a lot of more data and knowledge and insights. But human augmentation goes a notch further. And I want to share my fascination with the augmentation of humans in this video. To start with a definition, Gartner mentioned human augmentation near the end of 2019 as one of the most important technology trends for the coming years. So what's their definition of human augmentation? Their definition is: the field of human augmentation, sometimes referred to as Human 2.0, focuses on creating cognitive and physical improvements as an integral part of the human body. So they also give some examples which I dive into later in this video. Some other interesting remark about the Gartner report is maybe you are familiar with the bring your own device policy in your organization or in other organizations. So you can bring your own laptop or tablet or smartphone to the work and do your work with that device. Well, what's interesting is that Gartner actually stated that they expect around 2023 or 2025 that there will also be a portion of IT companies that do not only have bring your own device policy, but also bring your own enhancement policy. So I might be interesting how that is going to play out, but I give you some ideas and insights in this video. So what's the difference with a couple of other terms? Let me start with biohacking and transhumanism. Biohacking is also the use of technology to enhance, augment, improve and alter the human body, but it really has the open source spirit and way of cooperation in it. So you might think of human augmentation more being used in the workplace and offered by commercial organizations, while biohacking is more open source and free and more experimenting in a sense. The difference with transhumanism is that transhumanist ideas are more into the future. So they are really more into the Edge of Tomorrow type of cases where I started off. So human augmentation technologies and methods are already being used today or in the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years, while a lot of the transhumanist ideas have a longer timeline. So I expect them to come to fruition like in 20 to 50 to maybe 100 years. An interesting difference is between human augmentation and human enhancement. And the difference is that human enhancement is more broader about enhancing human capabilities, while augmenting is also adding features, adding functions, maybe also adding some technologies on the human body. So to give you a concrete example, I would say that the use of genetic modification is a form of human enhancement, while it not per se is human augmentation. Another difference is that human augmentation is also being used more in the workplace, and you can also find it more in the discussions about using technology to improve human capabilities in commercial organizations for employees, etc. While human enhancement is being used more by government agencies talking about legislation and also about geopolitics. Now I want to talk about a couple of examples of human augmentation. I want to mention replacement, support, improvement, and communication. So I'll give you 4 types of human augmentation technologies. So the first one is replacement. And the best way to look at replacements is the use of protheses. So protheses are, for example, when you have lost a body part like an arm or a leg. Nowadays, most people use them in healthcare applications. So when there are really patients that lost a limb. And one of the most interesting examples in this field is Hugh, who also gave a TEDx talk on this topic, and also Tilly Lockey. She lost her arms when she was about 3 years old because of some brain disease. And now she has bionic arms, and she's very proud of them. She says she can also do her makeup and also paint with the bionic arms. The second type is support. And here comes in the Edge of Tomorrow exoskeletons technology, because you can of course use technology to augment human capabilities in the physical sense. So these exoskeletons are being used not only in healthcare to help people with, for example, that are paralyzed, to help them move again, but also being used in the workforce. There's an example of the Ford factories that use exoskeletons for the employees to mainly support while they're doing a lot of work with their hands above their head. But also the Dutch Marine and also the American Army is also looking at the use of exoskeletons to improve the capabilities, the physical capabilities, for example, in a warehouse or also on the battlefield. And you can also think of human augmentation as a kind of support with the use of augmented reality glasses, for example Google Glass. So you get extra information for the employees to do their work. So this is also being used in highly technical functions. The third type is improvement. And improvement you can think of putting new senses to the human body. To give you 2 examples, the first one is the development of so-called smart contact lenses. So that in a way it looks a little bit like the smart glasses, only it's really integrated in the human body and gives extra information and extra capabilities to the human, to the employee, to the human being, etc. Another nice example is how do you get extra senses is the use of haptic feedback. So there's also a company working on a sort of belt with little motors in it, and you can give extra haptic feedback to the one who's wearing the belt. And also the Dutch Army is testing this device. So when you are in the battlefield, you get a little movement in one of the motors. So for example, you know which direction you have to go. So that's instead of getting that inside your ear, it's being used directly as a sort of extra sense on the body. And the fourth category is communication. And the most interesting field in human augmentation, because I said it's more about the use of technology in the workplace, is so-called brain-computer interfacing. It's about using brain waves to communicate with machines, with software, etc. And it's a really rudimentary technology at the moment. I also have a device at home. This is a Muse headband. And I can use this device to measure my brain waves while doing meditation. But what's interesting is that there are also now startups and companies working on the use of this technology in a way to also, maybe in the future, that you can directly control certain machines or maybe be faster in giving directions or giving signals to software, to machines, to hardware, etc. So that's an example of communication. Maybe in the future we have direct communication, and of course there are all kinds of applications where you can use this in the commercial setting but also in the workplace. For the last part of the video I want to talk about the augmented human. The augmented human is a term used by Finnish scientists. They wrote a study on human augmentation, and I want to highlight some things in the paper. They published the paper in 2019. They say the augmented human is a new user interface paradigm which merges and expands many of the old paradigms. So it's interesting that they're really also looking at the interface part. So these are examples of what I told you about how do you get about the smart glasses, how do you get extra information or new information so you can support or improve the way in which an employee is functioning and doing his or her job. Another quote from the paper: numerous sensors and cloud data provide informational artificial intelligence filters, and it's presented in easy to understand ways to support human cognition in a timely manner. So that's more about the cognitive function, but they also say physical tools or robots enable action in and changes to the environment. So that's again also about the collaboration of man and machine with the use of human augmentation technologies. At least the scientists also say, at its best, other people are brought close to us, independent of where they are physically located. At its worst, privacy and autonomy may be threatened. It may be in danger. So they also see the possible upside of human augmentation technologies, but also the downside. And in a way, this is also compared to what I taught you in the video about human enhancement. They're around the same kind of ideas. We can use the technology to improve our lives and improve ourselves as human species and our well-being. But on the other hand, if we misuse it, then it also can lead to more devastating results. So to conclude, in this video I shared the definition of human augmentation with you and why it's different from biohacking, transhumanism and human enhancement. I talked about a couple of examples of human augmentation technologies, and they're also more focused on applications in the workplace. So we talked about replacement, support, improvement and collaboration. And I also talked about the academic term of the augmented human. Thank you for watching, and I want to see you at the next video. Please subscribe to my channel, and also if you have a question or a remark, leave a comment down below. Go to my website if you want to have a free download, and if you're interested in more in-depth knowledge and know-how about human enhancement, human augmentation, biohacking and the superhuman era.